and welcome on behalf of Medscape Neurology. I'm here today with Dr. Indu Subramanian, who is the director of VVA Southwest Patrick Center in LA. I'm a neurologist here in Saratoga Springs, New York. And if you have watched us before, you know that we both are movement specialists interested in exploring a bit of the edges of Western traditional medicine. We had previously talked about integrative medicine and lifestyle medicine, and we're here today to talk about contemplative medicine. Now, Indu, I know you have recently completed a fellowship in this specialty. So tell us how you got interested in this and what we understand in this topic.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you and I, Kathrin, have talked about the fact that I think, standard Western approaches are, useful in many ways for how we practice medicine, but it's not, the be all and end all. And in our lives and in our practice, I think we've searched for other things. I personally had my own health journey, ended up relying on some mind-body practices that I had been exposed to as a child, got really interested in yoga, got trained as part of my yoga training in mindfulness, meditation, breath work, and really found that it helped me kind of transform my body, helped me to deal with stress on the job as a working mom in my personal life, and ended up really sort of delving more into mindfulness training. I work at the VA. I run a center of excellence. They've been interested in whole health as a concept. And we've had the luck, I guess, of having some of the most I would say dynamic and amazing mindfulness teachers on the planet work at our VA, who've been doing some of this work with meditation with patients and really making a difference even in depressed, anxious veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. So they had provided some courses through Inside LA and the VA on mindfulness. And so I did pretty much every class that you could have offered in the workspace for healthcare providers. And then I ended up being intrigued by this contemplative medicine fellowship that came about. It was run through the New York Zen Center, and there was quite an interesting application process. I needed an academic reference as well as a spiritual reference. I've never had a spiritual reference written about me, but it was quite interesting to think about who could write that. And then I ended up applying and getting a scholarship and doing this year-long fellowship through the New York Zen Center. And so here I am to tell you about it.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit more about the process. So this is obviously done in addition to your regular clinical work, but tell us about how this process looked like.
Yeah. So I think they did a really good job of selecting 30 of us. I think it was a relatively competitive application, and, was thrilled to get a scholarship. And we had to talk about a project that we might be interested in to use contemplative approaches, largely in the Buddhist tradition, to do a deep dive over a year, sort of do this exploration. The concept of learning about these contemplative approaches was not just for our patients, but really also sort of to look at how it could improve things within ourselves. So how to talk about our own journey where we were on, through medicine and personally, even in my personal life. And then talk about sort of the sense of using these practices to support a community of other physicians or healthcare providers in, my leadership role at the VA. Had written some essays about that. And then also, talking about the space of, a disease process that you and I both love is Parkinson's disease, the sense that we can use some approaches to helping patients living with chronic disease in this space. Sometimes we don't have the answers, of everything. We don't have a perfect pill or a perfect exercise to treat, an affliction, and, helping to understand how we can help patients when we don't have a solution was actually a huge part of, the process for me.
Yeah, so that sounds very intriguing. Tell me a little bit how this looks in your clinical practice and how this extra training you did really translate in your day-to-day clinical work.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, so just thinking back, we had 29 or 30 other people in this fellowship to rely on. So in Buddhism and many traditions, there's this concept of a sangha. So it's like the people that you're around is part of the sort of process. And so we would meet weekly doing different things in this fellowship in different ways. We were supposed to check in with someone else that we were paired with every month, with some phone calls, sort of to support each other. We also had a 1 day silent, or not exactly silent, but like a retreat, kind of including meditation on a Saturday. So that was sort of, a whole day of exploration together on Zoom largely. We also had some retreats in person, where we would actually meet each other. We went to the New York Zen Center, and also our graduation ceremony was actually in New Mexico at a rather spiritual location. And so we really, had this process of learning and doing exercises that were very practical on a regular basis with the group, and sometimes would have to do some poetry writing or some journaling, or some shared exercises where we would think about a patient scenario and discuss that with the group, sometimes with each other, sometimes just in smaller groups, and then share the stories with the whole group. I think what was really profoundly interesting, I'm a very, very, very subspecialized Parkinson's neurologist. I was the only neurologist in the whole cohort, but there was huge numbers of other specialties that were represented, very diverse. So things like palliative care. There was frontline ICU workers that had been in the COVID pandemic, working in the ICU as pulmonologists, critical care doctors. There were some surgeons in our cohort, varied sort of ages, and some psychiatrists, OBGYNs, a real mix of people. And I think one of the things that was really interesting was just the shared experience in healthcare that we all have, that was very universal, of, just looking at the current healthcare environment and really not being so comfortable just practicing in the sort of status quo. And so really the search for something different, something a little bit more meaningful, understanding sort of, I guess, the sort of discomfort that we had, and trying to pin it down in sizable ways through working with some of our mentorship, some of the teachers, just to see if there was something, that we could meaningfully do. And I think as a cohort, we kind of grew close through the year and really have supported each other. And I find myself even today thinking about different classmates and sending them, something that resonates with me that I might have read that reminds me of them, a poem, a song, a prayer, sometimes asking about something that happened in my clinic, asking for advice as to how to handle it, things like that. So I think one of the huge pieces was really this sort of cohort of fellow healthcare practitioners. And I think, this sort of concept of contemplative medicine, where we're really being in the moment, in the present, sort of looking kind of at our own thoughts and just sort of trying to just reflect, I think has been very therapeutic.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, we're both movement specialists and see lots of patients with Parkinson's. And you mentioned there's lots of symptoms of Parkinson's that are not easily treated with a medication. And many people struggle with depression, sleep issues, anxiety, and where some of these contemplative approaches can really be helpful. So how do you approach patients in the clinic, or especially patients who are maybe not have never heard of approaches like that, or might not be open to that? So give us maybe some practical pointers here.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that, there's a concept that we have, 20 minutes of meditation that we can sit on a cushion and sort of reflect on our own thoughts and, um, be present in the moment. I think that's very sort of daunting for a lot of our colleagues and many of our patients. But there are sort of ways that we can, I think, bring contemplation into our day-to-day lives. And I think one of the things that's really been resonant for me is just taking moments, simple moments. Sometimes it's just 1 minute of a pause in my day and just sort of really being with my own thoughts and sort of just, going out in nature, for example. I work at a VA. There's some beautiful rose bushes in front of our VA of different sorts, of different smells, beautiful aromas, sort of the sense of getting out in the sunshine. being in the wind, feeling the sun on your face. I think many of these things are things that we can try to incorporate even, in simple moments. And I have the luck of having, staffing various trainees, and I've been taking some of the trainees outside. Originally, it was, I guess, in the guise of social distancing. They present the case outside, and it's just been a really nice way to sort of get back out into nature a little bit. Some of our teaching, trying to eat a meal even here and there outside in the sunlight and nature has just restored just a little bit of a sense of presence, a little bit of a sense of joy, and gratitude. So these are sometimes just simple things that we're able to do. We try to teach our patients sometimes similar things. One of the things that I think has led to sometimes my sense of burnout is that I want to help the patient and do everything I can all at once, and see suffering and want to fix their house situation, their lack of food, or homelessness, things like that. And it just becomes so daunting to take on all these problems and really sort of suffer with the patient and take on their suffering. And I think that one of the lessons that's been taught to me through this fellowship is just the ability to just bear witness and sort of come alongside and be with somebody in that moment of suffering. We've even in a space where somebody may be in a palliative care or hospice setting and they're dying. I used to feel the need to sort of, do something and, adjust the medicine or help the family in this way or that way, or say a lot, to comfort people. And I've just sort of taken time to just be able to just be there. And sometimes just being able to be with somebody who can talk to you about their problem, a patient who may, have a lot of things. I think just having somebody hear them, see them, and that shared sort of human experience of being with somebody can actually be hugely therapeutic. And I think that's part of the medicine that I never really realized is something that I can give no matter what the circumstance.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for laying this out. And it sounds like this was really a meaningful experience personally, and really might help other people too. So, if someone's interested to find more about contemplative medicine, where can they go? What resources do you recommend?
Yes, I mean, I think there's a number of spiritual teachers that I've really loved over the years. I think Jack Kornfield is somebody that really speaks to me. Sharon Salzberg is another amazing teacher. She was a guest teacher in our fellowship. The fellowship itself is an experience. It's a year-long deep dive, and I think that they'll be accepting applications for next year's cohort. It runs from about, I think, July, August to the next July, August. And, I think it's not for everyone, but I think certainly some of the principles could be learned from reading. The person who is probably the most sort of knowledgeable is at the New York Zen Center kind of staff. You can look up their website. They also have, I think, a number of videos that talk about some of these topics and some resources on that website. So I definitely urge people to look at that. And, I think that even looking for a meditation center, maybe a colleague that is interested in some of this and asking them in your own neighborhood, what is sort of a first step to maybe exploring some of this. I think even there's many drop-in groups of meditation all over the place, and sometimes in certain medical centers or, university campuses. So urge you to just sort of, test the water a little bit, maybe drop in or read a book in this space. That would definitely be helpful. There's also some podcasts and apps and stuff if you're interested in just, a 5-minute meditation, maybe around sleep or Calm app, things like that. They're 10% Happier is another app that I think is accessible. So, urge you to just sort of test it out.
Great. Well, thanks so much for that wealth of information. I hope we all find some moments of peace and contemplation in our medical and personal life. And I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. And thanks again for talking to me today.
Thank you, Catherine.